Let's just start with a feeling. Picture this. You're walking up to a podium, you're about to speak, and bam, your body just takes over. Your heart is pounding out of your chest, your mind goes completely blank, and you feel this tightness. It's a powerful and deeply human experience.
If any of that sounds even a little bit familiar, well, you are definitely not alone. That feeling is anxiety. And in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to unpack together.
All right, first things first. It is so important to get this. Anxiety itself isn't the bad guy. Not at all. It's a universal feeling, and honestly, it can even be a useful part of being human.
Think of anxiety as your body's built-in alarm system. You know, in the right dose, it's actually what sharpens your focus before a big test, or gives you that push to prepare for a huge project. It's just a signal trying to tell you, hey, pay attention to this. The problem isn't the signal itself, it's what happens when the volume gets stuck on high and just won't turn down.
So where's the line? What's the real difference between that everyday, maybe even motivating stress and something more serious? This is a really key distinction, because it's where a helpful signal can start to become a source of real distress.
Okay, so let's break this down. The difference really boils down to two things: how long it lasts and how much it impacts you. Everyday worry, it's temporary. It's tied to something specific, like that exam we talked about. And when the exam's over, the feeling mostly goes away. But clinical anxiety, that's persistent. It's ongoing. The worry often feels way bigger than the situation actually calls for, and it starts getting in the way of your daily life.
And this isn't some rare thing we're talking about. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 1 out of every 3 adults in the U.S. will experience an anxiety disorder at some point. That is a huge number, and it just shows why it's so important for us to understand this better.
You know, anxiety isn't just one single thing. It's more like a family of related issues. It shows up in a lot of different forms, which are often called anxiety disorders.
So these are some of the most common ways it can manifest. You've probably heard of generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. That's that chronic, kind of constant worry. Then you've got social anxiety, panic disorder, specific phobias, and even obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, which is very closely related. They all look a bit different on the surface, but they often share some of the same underlying patterns.
So what's the engine that keeps this persistent anxiety running? A lot of the time, it's not actually the thing you're worried about. It's the patterns in our thoughts and in our behaviors that create this self-sustaining loop. Let's take a look at how that actually works.
Okay, first up, we have a thinking pattern called catastrophizing. This is when your brain just automatically jumps to the absolute worst-case scenario. You make one tiny typo in an email, and your brain doesn't just go, oops. It screams, I'm gonna get fired and my life is over.
Then there's all or nothing thinking. This is classic black and white thinking. There is no middle ground. Things are either absolutely perfect or they are a complete and total disaster. You can imagine the kind of pressure and anxiety that creates.
And finally, let's talk about rumination. This is when your mind gets stuck on a thought, like a hamster on a wheel. You just replay a past mistake or worry about a future problem over and over and over. But instead of solving anything, all it does is pour gasoline on the fire of anxiety. You can probably see how these all work together, right? An anxious thought, like catastrophizing, creates a very real, physical feeling of anxiety. That feeling then seems to prove that the original scary thought was true. And just like that, you're stuck in a powerful feedback loop.
But it's not just our thoughts. Our actions can create a powerful loop too. Take the avoidance cycle. So you come across a trigger, let's say public speaking again. To feel safe, you just decide not to do it. You call in sick, and in that moment, woo, you feel so much relief, and your brain loves that feeling. But here's the catch. In the long run, you've just taught your brain that public speaking is, in fact, incredibly dangerous and that avoiding it is the only way to be safe. So the fear actually gets stronger for next time.
Okay, so we've looked at the thought loops and the behavior loops, and I know that might sound a little discouraging, but here is the good news, the really good news. Just recognizing these patterns is the first step to empowerment. Understanding how these cycles work is how you start to break them.
Seriously, just becoming aware of your personal triggers, the situations, the thoughts that set off your anxiety, that right there is a total game changer. When you can name what's happening, whether it's, oh, I'm catastrophizing right now, you start to take away its automatic power. You go from being a passenger on a scary ride to being an observer, and that is where all the change begins.
So what can you actually do? Well, it starts with real strategies like these. You can begin by just noticing your triggers without any judgment. Find some healthy ways to relax and just calm your nervous system down. Lean on your people.
connect with friends and family. And this is so important. If these feelings are sticking around and getting in the way of your life, talking with a healthcare provider isn't a weakness, it's a sign of strength.
And that really brings us to this incredibly important message. As the NIMH says, while living with an anxiety disorder isn't always easy, there is hope. And there really is. With the right support and treatment, it is absolutely possible to manage anxiety and live a full life.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this one question. Thinking about everything we've talked about, what's just one pattern, maybe a thought, maybe a behavior that you can start to just observe in yourself today? Because that simple act of noticing, that's where the change begins. Thanks for tuning in.